Months had passed since the night Ethan decided to confront his pain head-on, and with each passing day, he found himself a step further away from the man he used to be. The change wasn't overnight, nor was it easy. It was a gradual process, filled with moments of doubt and reflection, but also of growth and newfound hope. His workshop became his sanctuary, a place where he could lose himself in the grain of the wood. Each piece he crafted a testament to his journey. It was during one of these long afternoons, with the sun casting warm glows over his latest project, that Ethan realized he was genuinely smiling, something that had felt foreign and impossible in the days following the divorce. A knock on the door broke his concentration, and he looked up to see Marcus standing at the threshold, a grin on his face and a six-pack of beer in hand. "Thought I'd find you here, burrowed away in your cave of wonders," Marcus joked, stepping into the cluttered space filled with Ethan's creations. Ethan chuckled, wiping his hands on a rag. "You know me too well. What's the occasion?" "No occasion. Just figured it's been a while since we checked in. Plus, I wanted to see what masterpiece you're working on now," Marcus replied, setting the beers down on a makeshift table. The two friends settled into a comfortable silence, the kind that only comes with years of friendship, as Ethan showed Marcus his latest piece, a beautifully intricate coffee table that was nearly finished. "You've really outdone yourself, Ethan. It's incredible," Marcus said, admiration clear in his voice. "Thanks, man. It's been a good distraction, you know. Keeps my mind off everything else," Ethan replied, his voice trailing off, the unspoken words hanging in the air. Marcus nodded, understanding the depth of Ethan's pain without needing it spelled out. "How are you holding up, really?" he asked, the levity in his tone replaced by genuine concern. Ethan sighed, leaning against the workbench. "Better. Honestly, better than I thought I'd be at this point. There are still tough days, you know, but they're getting fewer and farther between. That's all you can ask for, right? Progress, no matter how slow it feels," Marcus said, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. "Yeah, progress. And I've been thinking about putting myself out there again. Not anything serious, just meeting new people," Ethan admitted, the words feeling strange yet liberating. Marcus raised an eyebrow, a smile playing on his lips. "Oh, that's a big step. I'm proud of you, man. It's about time you got back in the game." Ethan laughed, the sound light and genuine. "Yeah, well, don't get too excited. Baby steps, right?" "Of course, baby steps. But it's a step forward, and that's what matters," Marcus replied, his support unwavering. The conversation shifted then to lighter topics, plans for the future, and the promise of new beginnings. As the afternoon turned to evening, Ethan felt a sense of contentment settle over him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. Marcus eventually stood, stretching his limbs. "I should get going. But hey, let's not let it be so long before we do this again, okay?" "Definitely," Ethan agreed, walking Marcus to the door. "Thanks for stopping by, Marcus. It means a lot." "Anytime, Ethan. You know that," Marcus said, before stepping out into the evening, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. Standing in the doorway, Ethan looked out at the setting sun, its rays painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. In that moment, he felt a sense of peace wash over him, a confirmation that he was indeed moving on, stepping into a future that, while uncertain, held the promise of happiness and healing. With a deep breath, he stepped back into his workshop, ready to face whatever came next with a strength and resilience that had been forged in the darkest of times. Ethan was moving on, and for the first time in a long time, he was excited to see where the journey would take him. The night passed with the slow agony of a wound left untreated. Lucas, sitting in the dim glow of the kitchen light, replayed the evening's events until each word, each glance, felt like a cut deeper into his understanding of his family. The dawn brought no relief, only the harsh light of day and the inevitability of confrontation. As the first rays of sunlight breached the horizon, Lucas heard the soft tread of his mother's footsteps. Sarah, unaware of the storm awaiting her, entered the kitchen with a practiced smile, one that faltered at the sight of her son's stern expression. "Lucas, you're up early," she began, her voice a careful blend of surprise and maternal warmth. "Didn't hear you come in last night." Lucas's response was measured, his anger a tightly coiled spring. "I could say the same. Had a visitor, didn't we?" Sarah's smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic that she quickly masked. "A visitor? Oh, you must mean Jenna from next door. She dropped by." "Stop." Lucas cut in, his voice sharp. I'm not a child, Mom. He left not long before dawn. I saw him. The air grew heavy, a tangible pressure between mother and son. Sarah's initial shock gave way to a defensive posture, her eyes narrowing. Lucas, you're misunderstanding the situation. It's not what you think. What I think, Lucas interrupted, his voice rising, is that Dad was away, and you had a man in our house. In your bedroom. How should I understand that? Sarah's attempt to maintain control was slipping. It's complicated, Lucas. Adult relationships are complex. Your father and I, we've been having problems. This doesn't concern you. Lucas felt a bitter laugh escape him. Doesn't concern me. This is our family, Mom. You're cheating on Dad, and you say it doesn't concern me. Sarah sighed, a mix of frustration and resignation in her posture. Lucas, please. You can't tell your father about this. It would destroy him. Destroy us. And what about what you're doing? Isn't that destroying us? Lucas countered, the weight of his words heavy in the air. The standoff between them was palpable, a chasm of betrayal and hurt that had suddenly yawned wide open. Lucas, with a clarity born of disillusionment, saw the facade of his family crumble. Mom, he said, his voice softer but laced with resolve, I can't just pretend this didn't happen. Dad deserves the truth. Sarah's face crumpled, the mask of composure giving way to raw desperation. Lucas, please. Think about what you're saying. We can fix this. Just give us a chance. But Lucas knew there was no going back. The truth, once obscured, now cast a long shadow over their family, and he was caught in the middle, forced to choose between the painful honesty and the blissful ignorance of before. As the confrontation ended with no resolution in sight, Lucas was left with the weight of a decision that would alter the course of their lives. The morning light, once a symbol of hope, now seemed to mock him with the revelation of a world much darker than he had ever imagined. The confrontation at dawn had left the household in a state of uneasy silence. Lucas, feeling the weight of his discovery and the subsequent confrontation with his mother, found himself pacing the length of his room, each step a testament to his inner turmoil. The house, once a sanctuary of familial warmth, now felt like a battlefield, with invisible lines drawn and allegiances tested. As the day waned, his father, Mark, returned home, his presence a stark reminder of the secret Lucas now harbored. The air was thick with unspoken tension, a prelude to the storm that was about to break. Dad, Lucas began, his voice hesitant as he entered the living room where Mark was sitting, oblivious to the seismic shifts that had occurred in his absence. We need to talk. Mark looked up, his expression one of mild curiosity tinged with concern. What's on your mind, son? Lucas took a deep breath, the words he was about to say feeling like a betrayal yet necessary. It's about Mom. I saw something last night, something that can't just be ignored. Mark's face hardened, the lines around his eyes deepening. What are you talking about, Lucas? She wasn't alone last night. Someone was here, with her, in our house. Lucas's voice broke, the weight of his revelation hanging heavily between them. A silence enveloped the room, suffocating in its intensity. Mark's initial shock slowly morphed into a pained understanding, his worst fears confirmed by his son's faltering words. I see, Mark said quietly, the words barely a whisper. And you're sure of this? Lucas nodded, unable to meet his father's gaze. I saw him leave. I confronted Mom this morning. She didn't deny it. The admission hung in the air, a palpable entity that threatened to consume them both. Mark stood, his movements slow, as if he was suddenly years older. This is a lot to take in, Lucas. I appreciate you telling me, though I wish you hadn't had to be the one to do so, Mark said, his voice strained. Dad, I didn't know what else to do. I thought you should know, Lucas replied, his voice a mixture of defiance and regret. Mark nodded, placing a hand on Lucas's shoulder, a gesture of gratitude and sorrow intermingled. We'll figure this out, as a family. We'll talk to your mother together. Thank you, Lucas, for your honesty. The conversation marked a turning point, a moment of reckoning for a family caught in the throes of betrayal and heartache. Lucas, though burdened by the role he had played in unveiling the truth, felt a reluctant sense of relief. The secret was out, and with it, the hope, however faint, of mending what had been broken. As night fell, the household braced itself for the difficult conversations that lay ahead. The aftermath of Lucas's revelation promised to be a painful journey, but one that, perhaps, could lead them back to each other, to a place of understanding and forgiveness. The road to healing was long and uncertain, but it was a path they would now walk together, as a family forever changed by the events of one fateful dawn. The evening had settled over the household like a heavy shroud, the dinner table an arena where glances were exchanged like silent arrows, each one missing its mark. Lucas watched as his father, Mark, struggled to maintain a semblance of normalcy, his attempts at conversation falling flat in the charged atmosphere. Sarah, for her part, seemed to shrink under the weight of her secret now laid bare, her eyes darting nervously between her husband and son. It was Mark who broke the silence, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of pain. "Sarah, we need to talk about what Lucas told me. About what's been happening." Sarah's fork clattered against her plate, the sound disproportionately loud in the tense silence. "Mark, please. Not now. Not like this." "But when, Sarah? When is the right time to discuss you betraying our family? Because I can't seem to find a perfect moment for that." Mark's voice rose, a crescendo of hurt and anger. Lucas watched, torn between intervening and retreating, the weight of his revelation now a tangible presence at the table. "I made a mistake," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was lonely, Mark. You're always working, and Lucas is growing up, needing me less and less. I just felt so invisible." "That's no excuse, Sarah. We promised each other. We promised Lucas a family," Mark countered, his disappointment a palpable force. "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Sarah's voice broke, her composure crumbling under the weight of her husband's gaze. Lucas, feeling a surge of unexpected empathy for his mother, spoke up. "Dad, I'm not saying what Mom did was right, but can we at least try to understand why? Can we try to fix this somehow?" Mark turned to his son, the anger in his eyes softening into sorrow. "Lucas, I don't know if I can. The trust is broken. How do we go back from this?" "It won't be easy," Lucas admitted, his voice steady despite the turmoil he felt. "But maybe we can start by being honest with each other. About how we're feeling, what we're missing in this family. Maybe we can build something stronger from the broken pieces." The conversation that followed was difficult, a navigation through the minefield of hurt feelings, betrayal, and the desperate desire to hold on to the family they once knew. Mark, Sarah, and Lucas each laid bare their grievances, their fears, and their hopes for the future. As the night wore on, the initial anger and resentment gave way to a cautious understanding. The illusions of a perfect family were shattered, but in their place, the beginnings of a new, more honest relationship started to take shape. It was a fragile thing, easily broken if not handled with care, but it was a start. The road ahead was uncertain, the process of healing and forgiveness a daunting task. But as they cleared the table together, a silent agreement passed between them. They would try, despite the pain and the difficult conversations that lay ahead. They would try to rebuild, to create a family not defined by its past mistakes, but by its willingness to face them together. In the aftermath of shattered illusions, the faintest glimmer of hope emerged, a testament to the resilience of love and family, even in the face of betrayal. The days that followed were marked by a cautious dance of reconciliation and rebuilding within the household. Mark, Sarah, and Lucas each navigated the fragile terrain of their new reality with a mix of hope and trepidation. Yet, beneath the surface of their budding efforts at mending the rifts, a darker undercurrent threatened to unravel the fragile threads of trust they were painstakingly weaving. It was a seemingly innocuous discovery that set the stage for the next act of their familial drama. Lucas, in search of a document for his school project, stumbled upon a series of emails on the family computer. Emails that painted a far more complex picture of his mother's betrayal than any of them had imagined. "Mom, can we talk?" Lucas's voice was calm, but the undercurrent of disillusionment was unmistakable as he confronted Sarah in the kitchen, the printed emails in hand. Sarah's face paled at the sight of the papers, a silent testament to her deceit. "Lucas, how did you find those?" "That's not important. What is important is understanding why. Why him? Why lie about it being just a one-time mistake?" Lucas's questions pierced the veil of silence that had momentarily enveloped them. Sarah sighed, a mixture of resignation and fear etching her features. "It started as just that, a mistake. But then, it became something I couldn't stop. I was selfish, Lucas. I was lost, and I didn't think about the consequences." Lucas shook his head, disappointment clouding his eyes. And Dad, how you plan to explain this to him? He's trying so hard to keep us together, to forgive. I don't know, Lucas. I don't know how to make this right, Sarah admitted, her voice a whisper of despair. The confrontation between Lucas and Sarah was but the first ripple in the pond. The revelation of the emails a catalyst for a far more tumultuous reckoning. When Mark was apprised of the new information, the fragile peace that had begun to settle over the household was shattered once more. Sarah, how could there be more? How many more secrets are you keeping from us? Mark's voice was a controlled calm, belying the storm of emotions raging within him. Sarah, cornered by her own web of lies, struggled to find the words that could bridge the chasm her actions had created. Mark, I'm sorry. I thought I could end it, that I could walk away from it all, and we could go back to being us. But we can't, can we? Because us was based on a lie. How do I trust anything you say now? How does Lucas? Mark's questions hung in the air, a damning indictment of the trust irrevocably broken. The family found themselves at a crossroads, the revelations of Sarah's prolonged affair and the lies that had ensnared them all forcing them to confront the possibility that some fractures were too deep to mend. In the aftermath of the exposed web of lies, each member of the family was left to grapple with their own pain and disillusionment. Lucas, caught between his love for his parents and his sense of betrayal, struggled to reconcile the image of the family he thought he knew with the reality laid bare before him. Mark, faced with the depth of Sarah's betrayal, was forced to confront the limits of forgiveness and the daunting prospect of rebuilding his life and his family from the ground up. And Sarah, her lies exposed and her family on the brink of collapse, was left to reckon with the consequences of her choices, the realization that her actions had irrevocably altered the course of their lives. As the dust settled on the revelations of the web of lies, the family was left to navigate the uncertain waters of their future, each member isolated in their own sea of regret and longing for a way back to each other, if such a path still existed. The revelation of Sarah's prolonged affair and the intricate web of lies she had woven around it left the family in a state of turmoil. The fragile hope that had begun to take root in the aftermath of the initial confession was now scorched earth, leaving behind a wasteland of hurt feelings and shattered trust. Mark found himself in the study, a room once filled with the laughter and warmth of family gatherings, now a sanctuary of solitude and reflection. The weight of his wife's betrayal, compounded by the depth of her deception, pressed down on him with an unbearable heaviness. It was there Lucas found him, late into the night, the glow of the desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. Dad? Lucas's voice was tentative, unsure. Can we talk? Mark looked up, the lines of exhaustion and pain etched deeply into his face. Of course, Lucas. What's on your mind? Lucas took a deep breath, gathering his courage. I'm angry, Dad. Angry at Mom, angry at the situation. But I'm also scared. Scared of what this means for us, for our family. Is there any coming back from this? Mark sighed, the sound heavy with sorrow. Lucas, I wish I had the answers. Your mother's actions have torn the fabric of our family. I don't know if it can be mended. I'm struggling to understand, to forgive. But I do know this. No matter what happens, I will always be here for you. We'll get through this together. Lucas nodded, a lump forming in his throat. Thanks, Dad. It means a lot to hear that. The conversation marked a turning point for Mark and Lucas, a reaffirmation of their bond amidst the chaos that threatened to engulf their family. But for Sarah, the path to redemption was a far more solitary one. Confronted with the full extent of the damage her actions had caused, Sarah found herself grappling with a profound sense of loss and guilt. The home she had built with Mark, the family they had raised together, now seemed like distant memories, tarnished by her betrayal. In a moment of desperation, Sarah sought out Mark, finding him alone in the garden one crisp morning. Mark, I don't even know where to begin, she started, her voice trembling with emotion. I've destroyed everything we had, everything we built together. I'm so sorry, more than I can ever express. If there's any way, any chance of forgiveness, of rebuilding what I've broken, I'll do whatever it takes. Mark regarded her with a mixture of sadness and resignation. Sarah, your apology, while appreciated, can't undo the hurt you've caused. I don't know if I can forgive you. Not now, maybe not ever. We need to think about what's best for Lucas, for the family. That might mean taking some time apart to figure out if there's a way forward for us. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. I'll respect whatever decision you make. I just hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. The fallout from Sarah's betrayal set each member of the family on a personal journey of pain, reflection, and ultimately healing. Mark and Lucas, bonded by their shared sense of betrayal, found strength in their unity, while Sarah faced the daunting task of confronting her mistakes and striving for redemption, even in the face of uncertain forgiveness. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, the outcome uncertain. But in the depths of their despair, a glimmer of hope remained, a hope that, in time, the wounds would heal, and a new chapter for the family could begin, built on the foundations of understanding, forgiveness, and a renewed commitment to each other. In the weeks that followed the tumultuous revelations, the family found themselves ensnared in a limbo of awkward silences and unspoken words. The once vibrant household now resembled a mausoleum, each member tiptoeing around the other, the air thick with the ghosts of their former lives. It was during one such evening, as a storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil within, that Mark called for a family meeting. The living room, with its flickering fireplace and the relentless tapping of rain against the windows, served as the backdrop for what would become a pivotal moment in their journey. Lucas, Sarah, we can't keep going on like this, Mark began, his voice steady despite the churn of emotions within. It's time we faced our reality head-on. We need to decide what comes next for us as a family. Lucas, who had been staring into the flames, looked up. I agree, Dad. We can't pretend everything's okay when it's not. But I also don't want us to fall apart. We need to find a way to move forward, whatever that looks like. Sarah, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, nodded. You're both right. I've caused so much pain, and I would do anything to take it back. But since I can't, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to help us heal, even if that means stepping back. The conversation that followed was raw and emotional, each member laying bare their fears, their hurts, and their hopes for the future. It was a reckoning of sorts, an acknowledgement of the deep wounds inflicted and the long road to healing that lay ahead. Lucas, your mom and I have been discussing the possibility of separation, Mark revealed, his voice laced with a sorrow that seemed to echo around the room. Not as a step towards ending our marriage, but as a way to give us all some space to heal and reflect on what we want our family to look like moving forward. Lucas's reaction was a mixture of surprise and understanding. If you guys think that's what's needed, then I support it, but promise me this isn't the end. Promise me we're still a family, no matter what. We promise, Lucas, Dara said, reaching out to take his hand, a gesture of unity amidst the uncertainty. This isn't the end. It's just a different path to finding our way back to each other. The decision to separate, while heart-wrenching, was met with a collective sense of resolve. It was an acknowledgement that while the path to reconciliation might require distance, the bonds that tied them together as a family remained unbroken. In the days that followed, as Mark and Sarah navigated the logistics of their separation, the air in the household began to shift. The oppressive weight of unspoken grievances gave way to a cautious optimism, a belief that perhaps, through this trial, they could emerge stronger, more understanding, and more forgiving than before. The reckoning, while painful, had laid bare the truths they needed to confront. It had forced them to acknowledge their individual and collective failings, but also their deep-seated love for each other. And it was this love, battered and bruised but enduring, that would guide them through the uncertainty of the days ahead. As they each embarked on their own journeys of self-discovery and healing, the family clung to the hope that this was not the end of their story, but rather a difficult chapter that would ultimately lead them to a new beginning. A beginning built on the foundations of honesty, trust, and a renewed commitment to facing life's storms together.